Welcome to the Late Night Race Review.
Monaco, baby! Yeah, baby! We did it. Well done. We won in Monaco. It's a dream. Well done, guys. Unbelievable job. Amazing weekend. Thank you so much.
Don't forget to support the podcast by hitting those like, follow and subscribe buttons.
Welcome on in to the Late Night Race Review. My name is Aidan Scott and joining me today is Isidro Gonzalez. How are you doing today, Isidro?
Hey, Aidan. I'm doing good. It was a nice weekend.
Good. That's good to hear. And to be honest, whatever the two of us were doing over the weekend was probably more exciting and interesting because that's right, folks. This weekend, we had the Monaco GP. And well, you guessed it, Monaco did what Monaco does best. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because all it brought was the contest to see who had the fattest ass on the grid so you could back up as many cars as possible. Pretty much like every year, it was a weekend where qualifying was the most exciting part of the weekend because like every Monaco race, wherever the drivers qualify is more than likely where they're going to end up, and that's going to be the exact same result. And well, you guessed it, it was the exact same thing. Bar Fernando Alonso's car giving up the ghost, but to be honest, I'd say he just had one of those big vapes hidden in his helmet somewhere and just took a big puff and blew it out the back just to make it look like there's smoke coming out of the back of his car, because more than likely, he was probably really bored as well. We also thought that the FIA had cracked the code on the Monaco pit strategies, and this year they decided to shake things up and have a mandatory two-stop pit stop for every team, and you're actually never going to believe this. The FIA were actually consistent with their decision-making this weekend, because they were wrong. My God, Isidro, before we unpack everything, I feel we need to address this. Monaco. A lot of people dread this race coming up on the calendar because, like myself and many others, I just find it incredibly boring. Others love Monaco because it's Monaco, but regardless if you love Monaco, you can't deny the fact that it's just one of the worst races of the season for actual racing and action. Would you agree with that? And then also as well, are you a fan of Monaco yourself?
I like Monaco from the history point of view.
Yeah.
But from the race itself, Monaco is really just Saturday. Qualification decides most likely where everyone will finish on the next day. The race itself, not as exciting as any other circuit.
You know, and that's such a disappointing thing because, like, I don't like to talk, badly about Monaco because I used to love watching Monaco growing up. It was the one race of the season where, back in like the early 2000s, again, I know we keep kind of going back to the Michael Schumacher era, Fernando Alonso, all the way back in the day. Like, back then, the cars were a lot smaller. Yes, they had V10s. We all love V10s. So it was the golden era, best era, no debate whatsoever. But like Monaco was always the race we always look forward to. It was exciting. It was fun. But like, obviously over time and as the cars have changed and developed and things like that, they've just gotten so big where there's just hardly any action. I mean, there were so many people asking the question. I'm going to ask it to you, Isidro, and see what your suggestions and ideas could be, because a lot of people were asking the question, well, if the two-stop pit strategy didn't work this weekend, and of course, look, we always love trying new things when it comes to F1, then what do they actually do with Monaco? Like, I know the cars for next season, the regulations are changing, the cars are getting smaller, but they're not getting that small to the point where, we're going to approach Monaco and say, oh, wow, there's going to be so many overtaking going on in Monaco. They're just going to be slightly smaller, but Monaco is still such a small track for these cars where there's hardly going to be any action. Like, what do they do? What would you think? What would your idea be when it comes to Monaco? What would they change?
Unless they want to invest and pay good money, they need to just change the track. I know it's very difficult. Yeah. That's why I'm saying it's expensive, because land in Monaco is not really up for grabs. So they'll need to invest and probably go out to the sea. I mean, if Miami stole some land and it's something with the ocean there, maybe Monaco would invest a few billions and just change a little bit. Not the entire layout because it's iconic, but they need to make a few changes at least to allow the drivers to make some overtakes, because it's not impossible, but it's very, very hard.
It is.
Monaco is more the ultimate test for a F1 driver. You need to be focused for 78 laps.
Yeah.
You blink and you are in the wall.
Yeah. No, true. Very, very true. And like the way I kind of look at it is, right, so from turn 1 all the way up there to Casino Square and all that section, like, yeah, look, that would be very difficult to actually, you know, kind of change that up or add to the track or widen it. But like, if you kind of look at that last turn just before the tunnel, you come down to the chicane at turn 10, all around there when you come up to the pool and then back again, that hairpin into where the pit straight is, you know, like that whole section there, when you look at it on a track map, you can actually see that, yes, it does curve around. But if you kind of think about that in terms of like a straight, if you just widened that corner just there at that turn 10 chicane, got rid of that, just that little sharp turn that they all have to make, because the majority of drivers, that's where they fail, is they hit the barrier right there and they're straight into the wall. Case in point, Kimi Antonelli in qualifying. And also as well, I remembered when I was watching qualifying, I had him down in my prediction to hit the wall and he goes and does it in qualifying. Thanks, Kimi. But I mean, like, even if they widen that out and then widens just all that area just going down towards where like the pool is, I mean, going into next year regulations and even further, that could potentially make for at least one overtake for the entire race. You know, like I think that's something that they need to do, because I don't want to say like we need to scrap Monaco. You know, like in the group chat, I definitely agreed with Owen. I think it was just I was in the heat of the moment. I said, yes, we need to scrap Monaco, get rid of it. It's so boring. I hate Monaco. But at the same time, too, for such a historic track, I love it, but I hate it as well. It's such an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
But
hate situation.
It is. It definitely is. But moving on from that, though, we do need to talk about a couple of things. So first of all, before we unpack the qualifying, before we unpack the race, the one thing I want to address, and it's probably the thing that everybody could see from that race today, was, you know, obviously teams like to do team orders and they like to do team things, right? But there's one point I want to raise, right? Literally before the race had started, I think it was Martin Brundle, or I can't remember exactly who came on the broadcast. They said that Christian Horner didn't like what Martin Brundle said when it came to having 4 cars on the grid. Christian Horner didn't like that, and that's obviously in reference to the likes of Visa Cash App Red Bull, or let's just call them Racing Bulls, and then also Oracle Red Bull Racing. When it comes to a track like Monaco, I really feel that when it comes to Christian Horner, and I don't know if you agree with me on this one, Isidro, I feel like he's the kind of person, he picks and chooses when he has 4 cars on the grid and when he doesn't, because yes, his rebuttal to this was, no, we don't have 4 cars. We're 2 separate teams. You know, you shouldn't be saying that. But then you look at a situation like last year with Daniel Ricciardo in Singapore, right? He was instructed by Oracle Red Bull Racing, 2 Racing Bulls, to put on soft tires to go and get the fastest lap so he could snatch the fastest lap point off of Lando Norris so that Max could have more of an advantage in the championship. I mean, that is so hypocritical. Do you agree with me on that one? Like, what's your take on this?
Well, first, we have to say that it's disrespectful to say that Racing Bulls is playing according with Horner. Saying that the example that you gave last year, it was probably why FIA scrapped the fastest lap gets the point.
Yeah.
Just to prevent teams from doing that. And I think going forward, I think Racing Bulls are trying to give some distance away from the Red Bull Racing, even though it's difficult because it's literally the same sponsor and it's more or less the same parent company. But I think they're trying to move away from listen to the orders of Horner, and I think more and more people are paying attention of what Horner does in just to prevent what you're saying, that Horner is controlling 4 cars on track.
Yeah. Because, okay, when you look at a case in point of Monaco, right, this weekend, we've seen all this sort of, you know, back and forward of backing this car up or backing this group of DRS cars in this train up. Like, I mean, you seen Liam Lawson, he was backing up all these cars to stop them from gaining an advantage on Isaac Hadjar. And then, you know, you look at, obviously, I know Max was doing his own thing when it came to the top of the top 3. But, I mean, when you kind of look at that in that sort of perspective, I mean, Monaco is such a golden opportunity for a person in his position to actually do something like that. Like going into that weekend, like, look, come on, let's face it. We're all looking at that going, we know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. He just doesn't want to say it. You know, it's just, and it just gets so boring when you hear him like trying to come up with some sort of excuse like, oh no, we don't have 4 teams. They're 2 separate teams. I mean, the Racing Bulls, that they have had parts on their car that have been tested for Oracle Red Bull Racing. Oracle Red Bull Racing have done the same thing for Racing Bulls to test out certain components throughout the season. That has been gone on record that they have done that. So like it just feels like, dude, come on, just admit it. You know, you're doing this because you have 4 cars on the grid. You know what you want to do. You are the top, you know, Red Bull team. He knows what he's doing, Isidro. He does know. But one thing I do want to talk about, and I know Dave will definitely be shouting at his screen or shouting at his headphones while listening to this. I definitely want to talk about Crofty. Oh my God. Did you hear Crofty's commentary during the race? He literally said, he was like, I feel for Monaco, they need to ban blue flags. I'm just going to let that sink in there for a second. Get rid of blue flags. I mean, what is that guy talking about? Clearly, he was on a bender last night. That's what he was. Definitely. You know, like that's a part of racing, regardless of what motorsports race thing it is. Blue flags are like an intricate part of making sure that the race leader who is going to lap the cars ahead doesn't get held up by back markers. I mean, what was your take on that? Did you hear him say that? I thought it was so ridiculous.
That's just crazy talking. I mean, the blue flags are there for a purpose, and regardless if people don't like Monaco, there's nothing to do. The blue flags are right there just to tell, well, you are slow. There's a guy coming, just let him pass because you're not doing anything.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like there were some of the points that Crofty was coming up with, and I was just like shouting at my screen going, dude, what race are you trying to comment on? Like, what's going on? Like, clearly he was definitely down at a couple of the yachts the night before having a few drinks.
Definitely.
But yeah, look, what we'll do is we'll head on straight into the action. But Isidro, I'm going to throw the question to you. What do you want to cover? Do you want to cover qualifying or the race? Because realistically, they were both the same sort of thing.
Yeah, qualification tells the story for Sunday.
Yeah,
basically.
We just hop straight into the race, will we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the 4 top drivers are the same drivers on the Saturday.
Yeah, basically, you know, like you kind of look at that, and like even when you look at the race result, and of course, look, we'll unpack each team as we kind of go along anyway. But I mean, you look at the race result. We had Norris in P1, Leclerc P2, we had Piastri 3, Verstappen in P4, and Hamilton P5. Now, obviously, because of the qualifying, Hamilton did receive that penalty. He then was P5 or something like that, or P6 starting off, one or the other anyway. So those positions were reversed. But going into the race, it pretty much ended up the same thing. Like if you flick between the race and qualifying, the only difference is that Fernando Alonso's car gave up. You know, like that's the difference. Yeah. Like he was out of the top 10 because his car, the power unit just ultimately failed, and that was him out of the race. Everyone just moved up a place, and then it was just a case of the top 10 finished as they pretty much did in qualifying. You know, Fernando Alonso might not have even been in the race, you know, but like it just kind of goes to show that like when it comes to Monaco, and again, I don't like talking bad about Monaco because again, I do like Monaco, but I also hate it because of this. We want action. We want overtaking. We want to see things happening. But going straight into the race, let's unpack it. First of all, we had lap 1. We did get that near sort of heart-stopping moment from Lando Norris. He did lock up his tires going into turn 1, but you know, he managed to evade that crisis and he got straight away all the way up to Casino Square. But the first thing that obviously came out was the Bortoleto crash into the wall. Now, I want to ask you the question. Do you think Kimi Antonelli pushed Bortoleto into the wall?
Yeah, I think he did. I think Kimi looked nice, giving space to Bortoleto to pass on the right, thinking that, well, next time I know the turn, he'll go against the wall. So I think Kimi has some responsibility. Not saying that he did on purpose, but I think he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, he definitely did. You know, you could kind of even see him going in there. I was like, oh my God, is this going to be like a Gasly Ocon situation from like last year. We're going to see another moment like this happening. I was kind of waiting for the moment when Ocon was going to appear out of nowhere, just hold up his car and wait for Gasly to come around, and then he just goes slightly like, remember me? But of course, a little bit after that, Gasly had his own little incident. I know we do want to go through the teams, but I do want to jump on into the incidents first. Gasly with that crash with Tsunoda. I mean, to be honest, when I looked at that, the first thing I thought of was that he was instantly trying to get revenge from Jeddah. He seen him coming, he went out the tunnel, and then boom, he was into the back of Tsunoda. Now, the one thing I do want to clarify, I know a lot of people, when they were watching the race, the broadcast did make it look like he said that he didn't have brakes coming out of the tunnel. Now, he did clarify in the post-race or in the driver thing or whatever, the media center thing or whatever, he did say that no, it wasn't a case of I didn't have brakes. It was a case of I went into the back of Tsunoda and then I didn't have brakes. I mean, what do you put that down to, Isidro? Just a racing incident? He just miscalculated it? Or do you think that was a bit silly what he did?
It, like I said before, Monaco is a test. It's ultimate test of F1 drivers. You blink, you lose. And that was, Gasly was just distracted for a 10th of a second. That was enough to hit the back of Tsunoda. And that was the end of the race for Gasly.
Yeah. And like, do you think that was wrong where like, I know a couple of them did mention that it was very, very, like not saying idiotic, but it was very stupid of them to actually drive that car all the way around the track with no brakes, go into the pit and potentially cause an accident in the pit lane. Do you think that was a bit of a stupid move as well? Should he have just maybe parked the car up somewhere, waited for the safety car? Like, I know his sort of reaction to it was, oh no, I didn't want to cause a safety car for everybody else. But I mean, okay, putting feelings aside for your fellow drivers, you were kind of being a little bit reckless by doing that. Do you agree? Do you think he should have parked up, or you think he did go straight into the pit?
Yeah, I think he was a bit reckless, especially you could see that the wheel just hanging for a thread.
Yeah.
And I understand that he doesn't want to get the safety car out, but he was hoping that there was no parts falling off, even though there was a few bits, but he doesn't really know the state of the car, and driving all that, even at slow speeds, you never know if something comes out, and then not only they are losing time, they lose then there'll be safety car because there is more debris on the road. So yeah I think, but it's again, I'm not sure if the drivers know all the positions where they have the crane to lift the car. So yeah, and that's also important.
But then that's another point as well to sort of raise. Like, I know the FIA, like they're looking at all these things where, yes, they want to try and improve the action when it comes to Monaco. Okay, we'll introduce an extra pit stop strategy or whatever. But like, when you look at these sort of things where major crashes happen, where, you look on other tracks where a crane could just come along or whatever, can just pick that car up, bring it up, and then out of the track it goes. But in Monaco, if you crash at a certain part of the track, that's it. You're snookered. If you can't move that car, it's a safety car, and it takes forever to get that car cleared away. I mean, you look at the situation last year when it came to Perez and Hulkenberg and every other driver who was involved in that massive torpedo of a crash at turn one. I mean, that took forever to clear. That's another reason why I think that like Monaco really needs to be addressed when it comes to not even its safety standards. I mean, you can't even, like, that's another point I kind of want to talk about. Like, when you look at FIA safety standards and like track grades and things like that, like you look at tracks that have been taken off the calendar because they say that, oh, it's not a grade 1 or a grade 2 or a certain whatever it is. Look at Monaco. I mean, it's so dangerous to drive around that track. And case in point, you crash, that's it. You're snookered and you just can't get out. And you've got cars like coming behind you at about 100 or 150 kilometers per hour or whatever it is, or miles per hour that they're coming. Like that's another thing I kind of want to look at. It's just, they really need to do something about Monaco. But anyway, look, I could go on a rant about Monaco all day long. I'm not going to do that. The other thing I want to move on to is the Mercedes and Williams situation. We will go through the other teams again, but my God, Isidro, what was your opinion on both Sainz and Albon? Just that whole situation there, Mercedes and Williams. Let's divulge it. Let's talk about it. What was your opinion on that whole thing?
I think Mercedes, and I'll point out Russell specifically, I think he just wasn't wrong. I know I like Williams, but I don't think that they were in the bad side of the story on the situation.
Yeah. Like I can understand, and again, this is where Monaco comes into play, where if you just back everybody up and you prevent the cars, sorry, excuse me, you prevent the couple of cars behind you from gaining an advantage in the pit lane, this sort of situation happens, and we've seen multiple teams doing this. Like, of course, like we'll touch on the likes of Racing Bulls and things like that, but like that was the same situation with them. They were backing cars up. Williams were backing cars up. I mean, Max Verstappen even got in on that action near the end of the race with Norris and Leclerc and Piastri. He was kind of backing them up as well, and that's where it kind of comes into play. But do you think it was a little bit over the top when it comes to Albon? I mean, there was 2 potential crashes there that he caused, or well, nearly caused, when it came to Russell and then it came to Antonelli. You could even see coming out of that, coming out of the tunnel, going down into that chicane, there's no room for 2 cars. You can't go through that chicane with 2 cars. And you kind of look at other tracks where, let's say, a situation like that happens, you do have a lot of runoff area, or you can kind of move to the left or move to the right and try and get them around the outside. In Monaco, doing that and that sort of strategy, I just feel it's very reckless. Do you agree with that? Do you think he was a little bit over the top on his trying to slow down and back everyone up strategy?
I think it's a bit of a gray line. I mean, you could always say I'm braking because might be I'm driving too fast or something. And again, drivers know this is Monaco, so you must expect that you may not have the room in the next turn that you are expecting. You can say that Albon was doing it on purpose, maybe testing the nerves of George Russell. I'll say that, but I don't think he was reckless. That's reckless on purpose or trying to, let's say, be evil on the track. Yeah, he was just braking and maybe testing the nerves, and definitely he touched a nerve on Russell because he was adamant saying, "I'll take the penalty."
Yeah, I see that. And I was like, oh my God, like this just goes to show Monaco in a nutshell. He didn't give the place back. He was just like, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and I'll take the penalty. But then ultimately he got egg on his face and he got a drive-through penalty. One of the worst things to ever be gotten in Monaco. I mean, and this is the other thing I kind of want to look at. Like in a situation like that on other tracks, most drivers would have been given a 5-second penalty or a 10-second penalty. But because, again, it's Monaco, the FIA were like, no, we're going to give you a drive-through. Like, Isidro, like this is the thing I keep on looking at. Like we keep on making special arrangements for Monaco when it comes to certain things. Like the FIA, they're just so inconsistent when it comes to dishing out these penalties and dishing out these rules. Like, I mean, I think the point I'm trying to make is that, well, okay, if a situation like that happens in Monaco, it should happen at every track, but it doesn't. I mean, there's been cases where Max Verstappen has done that, where he's gone off the runoff area. He hasn't given the position back. I mean, look at Jeddah. We've seen it this year. He got, what was it, a 5-second penalty? That's all he was given. Didn't give the position back. And ultimately, yes, I know he didn't win the race, but he didn't get a drive-through penalty. And we've seen it so many times on other tracks. I think the point I'm just trying to make is I'm just getting tired of just making special arrangements for Monaco just because it's Monaco. I think ultimately fix the track, get it sorted, and we won't have these problems, you know? But I think the other thing when it comes to Albon as well, like I know you're saying there when it comes to Russell and everything, but he also did try it with Antonelli. And I know Antonelli almost had a little bit of a hairy moment when it came to going into the back of Albon. But I think also as well, Albon and Sainz both said at the end of the race, they were like, yeah, we don't like driving like this, but it's Monaco. You know, like that's the thing. Like that's when the drivers are even saying that, it's kind of like, well, okay, come on, let's do something about this. But yeah, look, it's good to hear your opinion on that one, and I know it's definitely something. Like, again, look, folks, listen to this today. Let us know your thoughts on that whole situation there. I know everyone has their opinions on that whole thing, and especially when it comes to Monaco. But let's go back and let's talk about McLaren. They were obviously the stars of the show because we had Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri and that whole situation. But run me through it, Isidro. What did you make of McLaren today?
Pick McLaren. They 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 got the strategy right. They got lucky. That I think McLaren was expecting Ferrari to screw up, and they would like to have Norris and Piastri doing a 1-2, but Ferrari kind of screwed up their plans. But overall, I think even though McLaren didn't lead the race the entire time, they were confident enough on their strategy, and I mean, they did a great job on the Saturday, keeping sure that both McLarens were in the first two rows, and after that, it was easy to win in Monaco.
Yeah, and then you could even see as well for Piastri, like let's go in and let's talk about Red Bull about this as well, because you could even see there, like, again, another weekend where Piastri had another bad pit stop. I mean, the McLaren pit crew just, I don't know what they're doing to Piastri. I think they're kind of like, no, we like Norris, we want him to win, we're gonna screw this up for you, dude. You know, well, they're not really doing that, but you know, like, it's another weekend again where Piastri had a very bad pit stop, but he got out there and he put in the lap of his life to make sure that Max Verstappen didn't undercut him in the pits. I mean, even when you kind of look at Max, how do you sort of feel like with that sort of Piastri and Max battle there? Like, well, what was your opinions on that?
It was a good battle, and I think Max, even though Max doesn't like to not fight for the next position, I think Max was aware that there was no chance that he would safely overtake Piastri in Monaco. I mean, even in the other track would be difficult because McLaren are very fast. I think Max was just more concerned. I can keep my P4 or I can lose the P4 and probably screw up Piastri's race. And even though Max drives very, very hard, he doesn't go out of his way just screw up other people race. So I think he was, well, P4 is the position I'll end up. So I'll just keep this one and not fight Piastri. And I think Piastri was aware of that halfway the race.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think on the other side of the Red Bull camp as well, Tsunoda, he definitely had a bit of a tricky weekend as well. He finished up, what was it, P17 that he came in, you know, another difficult weekend for Tsunoda. Like, I know obviously he had a difficult weekend last weekend in Imola, but managed to come back, finish P10. Like, that was an amazing comeback drive for Tsunoda. But I think it's just, I think he really needs some luck. I would love to see Tsunoda up there in like the top 5, if even come the end of the race. I mean, that would just be absolutely incredible. But then I think, to be honest, moving on from that, I think we do need to talk about Aston Martin because, oh my God, first of all, Lance Stroll. Oh God, I mean,
what an idiot.
What a moron. Twice, Isidro. I mean, in practice with Charles Leclerc, what an idiot. I mean, that was just ridiculous. Going, like, you could see the blue flags, and then he was, I can't even remember the excuse that he made. It was so stupid. And then Charles obviously into the back of him. And then also he had the crash with Gasly. What was it? It wasn't in qualifying or was it practice or something like that. He had the issue with Gasly, or he didn't crash into Gasly. Gasly almost crashed into him because he pulled the same maneuver coming out of the tunnel going into the turn 10 chicane. What is with this guy, Isidro? What is with Stroll?
I think it's just Stroll being Stroll, basically. There's no excuse. And then again, that's why Monaco is the ultimate F1 test for the drivers. And you can see Stroll is not really up there.
No, He definitely isn't, because where did he finish? He finished in P15. That's where he finished. And as Lance Stroll loves to say, diamonds are made under pressure. Well, let's hope, Lance Stroll, that you don't get to experience that pressure sometime, because it's definitely a lot of pressure up there up the top, buddy. But then if you kind of look at the flip side of that, Fernando Alonso, oh my God, at one stage with Fernando Alonso, I thought he was turning into Kimi Räikkönen there with that radio call. Did you hear him coming across the thing? He was just like, what was it? He was just like, I can't push anymore.
Yeah.
I thought for a second there was Kimi Räikkönen going, for what? And then, like, when he DNF'd as well, I thought he was going to pull a Kimi Räikkönen, get out of his car, and then go to his yacht and just start drinking away for the afternoon.
I imagine that he wanted to do that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But like, Isidro, what do you think about Aston Martin this weekend? Like, overall, like, I know obviously, yes, they had the DNF with Alonso, and then Stroll, what was it, P17, but compared to Imola, we've seen a tiny bit of hope there in qualifying from Imola, but then with the race, great start, finishing up absolutely, you know, they were awful at the end of it, and then going into Monaco, it's just another situation. I mean, it's really disappointing to look at this. And even Adrian Newey was here this weekend at Monaco in the Aston Martin garage as well. Like, I mean, what do you think of them overall this weekend?
I think Aston Martin is maybe testing a few things, because like last week, the qualification was good. Let's just ignore Stroll and focus on Alonso. The qualification was good last weekend. The qualification was good this weekend. And it just, the race itself was a bit unlucky. So I think Aston Martin is onto something. They are probably aware that they will not win much or that many points this year, but it seems that like they are testing a few things, because the qualification shows a different car that comes out on next day on Sunday. So let's see if Spain, being not a street circuit as tough as Monaco, Alonso is more lucky.
Yeah, for sure. But then, like, you know, even talking about Madrid, like you already know my opinions when it comes to getting rid of historic tracks for all these lovely upgraded street circuits and stuff like that. But hopefully, though, going into Spain, Alonso has a little bit of luck, because I think the guy needs it, or else he's just going to walk out. We're probably not even. Which is a shame. Like, I don't think we're even going to see Alonso through to the end of the season. He's just going to go. He's going to like, you know what? Heck this. I'm out of here. This is ridiculous. I ain't waiting for Newey next year. I mean, if this is what it's going to be like, you know. But yeah, no, I think he definitely needs to catch a break. And I hope, I really, really do hope, because I would love to see that Adrian Newey, Fernando Alonso, you know, like that whole combination there really, really, you know, come to fruition. You know, I'd love to see great results from that. And I really hope he doesn't kind of kick it in at the end of the season and say, do you know what? I'm kind of done with all of this. I just can't take any more. I'm done. I'm moving on to something else, because it would be a major pity. Lance Stroll, don't really care too much about. He can do what he wants. But moving on, though, we do need to talk about Ferrari. Finally, Charles Leclerc, the curse of Monaco, didn't come back to bite him in the ass. It was just literally a case of Lando Norris, he pulled out one of the most blistering laps around Monaco. Was it like a 109.935 or something like that? Basically, Leclerc just missed out on it by a couple of tenths of a second. But overall, though, this weekend, Isidro, what did you think of Ferrari?
I fear for Leclerc and Lewis in Spain, because Ferrari was on point this weekend. The P2 that Leclerc got, and the P5 of Hamilton, it shows that if you only see these, you think, oh, Ferrari's doing great. But then we go to Spain, and it's the clown show that it's the usual Ferrari. So yeah, we'll see. But this weekend, they didn't screw up anything. The drivers did their best, and considering it was Monaco, actually Hamilton was he started behind Adjar and finished ahead of Adjar. So in a way, it was quite positive for Ferrari. But overall, the weekend was good. I didn't screw up, and the drivers, there was not much that Leclerc could do. Norris was flawless, and Hamilton, he overtook. Well, he he can win position, and then he had Max in front of him. That
Yeah.
will never happen. So
Yeah, no, definitely. I think coming out of this weekend, they definitely had some positive results. Like I know, obviously, look, it was a pity for Charles. I know he obviously wanted to have a second year in a row of winning Monaco, and look, it would have been great to see that. But ultimately, look, it's P2. He still got a lot of points for the team, and so did Hamilton. But hopefully, going into Spain, they can kind of change that around and they don't sort of drop out of nowhere. Because like the thing about it is, like when you kind of think of Ferrari, right? Like you look at them in F1, they're great around street tracks. They like that car, regardless of what year it's always been good at street tracks. But when you think of Ferrari, you always think that, okay, just a Ferrari car in general, regardless of what kind of racing car it is, should just be blistering fast around any track. But it's so strange to see that this car, like when it comes to weekends like Catalonia, which we have now, we had Imola last weekend, we've got all these big tracks and stuff coming up, and they just struggle so hard. But do you know what? There's one thing that you said there that I think is very, very true. It's the clown show. I think that's what the problem is. I don't think it's the engine. I don't think it's the car. I think it's those guys that are calling out the orders there at the pit wall. They're definitely doing something to Ferrari. But Isidro, if there's nothing else that stands out to you, I think we can move on, because Monaco, it pretty much has come and gone. There wasn't really anything else to kind of talk about, because it was all just pretty much the exact same order. Is there anything else that stood out for you over the weekend?
Well, I don't think you like it, but I think Lawson was good, a good teammate this weekend. Sacrificed himself to get Archer up there.
So next weekend, it won't be me here. Owen shall be returning, and I shall be putting in my resignation for the Late Night Race Review after giving Liam Lawson credit. What are you doing, Isidro? No, look, I know, look, guys, I go very hard on Liam Lawson every weekend, and I mean, I'm justified in doing it. He's a dick. But anyway, yes, I will give him a tiny ounce of credit. He did do very well to make sure that his ass was as fat as possible to back up as many cars on the grid as he could. I mean, yeah, like where did he finish? What was it, like P8? Yeah, P8 for Liam Lawson. Like finally he actually decided, you know what? I am an F1 driver and I can race a car. So yeah, I will give him some credit. He did finish P8 and he did do well. But again, Hajar, again, another weekend, and I know I mentioned this last weekend when we were talking about Imola, another weekend where he actually managed to get into Q3, and he still had some amazing results. And I'm not going to ask you again about the whole Sonoda and Hajar swap. We already talked about it last weekend. But the last point I think we should talk about is Isaac Hajar. Just overall, what do you think of his performance so far, and especially going into Monaco?
I think Hajar is adjusting very well to racing bulls, and I wouldn't rush him to Red Bull Racing anytime soon. This is just his first year in Red Bull Racing. It's a decent car for a rookie. It's not. I think the being on the Sauber like Bortoleto is a lot worse for you as a rookie. At least Racing Bull, they have a decent car. They know it's a rookie, and he's giving points almost every weekend. So I think he should stay there at least 2 years minimum before they think about destroying his career and moving to Red Bull Racing second seat.
Or hopefully maybe another team picks him up, because that guy, I have to give it to him. He is just, he like, I know Damien likes to always use this phrase, like he's like the dark horse, or this team is the dark horse of the season, whatever. But I think Isaac Hajar, this guy has just come in and he has just proven that he deserves to be in F1. Because you've seen a lot of rookies that have come and gone over the last couple of years, and they've failed within not even like a couple of races, and then you never hear about them again. But I really feel that Isaac Hajar is going to be one of those drivers where we hear from him for a very, very long time. Yes, he'll probably end up being in the Racing Bulls for the next couple of years, but I really hope that if Red Bull get their shit together when it comes to their organization and this back and forward swapping into that cursed second Red Bull seat, I kind of hope that he does maybe go to another team and he has a lot of success there, because I really do feel that this guy, and quote this if you want to, but I don't know, maybe it's not going to be soon, but there is going to be a year where we're going to see his name etched on the Drivers' Championship. I really feel that Isaac Hadjar is definitely a world champion. And also Kimi Antonelli. Like, these couple of rookies this season are just amazing to watch. And it's so fun to watch them develop and progress. And like, yeah, they've made their kind of little mistakes here and there, whatever. But like Hadjar, he's just, he is brilliant. Do you agree with me on that one?
Yeah, I agree. And which other team would you see Hadjar?
Well, definitely he will not go to Ferrari, because I know he's a Hamilton fan and I think he has already seen all the problems that Hamilton has experienced. So it's definitely not going to be Ferrari. If he was to go to another team, I would probably say if Aston Martin get their, excuse my language again, but if they get their shit together next season for the next regulations, and if Stroll decides to maybe get the boot, I would like to possibly see Hadjar at Aston Martin, because I feel with a combination of Adrian Newey just, pulling the strings there in terms of development and everything, I would like to see him go to Aston Martin. If not, possibly maybe even Mercedes. Like if let's say Russell decided to go elsewhere and a seat came up, I think either Mercedes or Aston Martin. Where would you like to see him if he did move?
If he did move, maybe Mercedes, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And maybe Ferrari in a couple of years. Once he won because no, not Ferrari, because Anthony Hamilton will not be there, so he cannot get the support.
Yeah. That's true.
Maybe Williams. They are getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah, that is true. They are getting very strong. They are definitely getting very strong. I'm really impressed to see what Williams have been doing. Again, this weekend, I wasn't really a big fan of that strategy, but hey, look, that phrase that we love using today, because it's Monaco. But hey, look, Williams are doing really well. But Isidro, if there's nothing else that came up for you over the weekend, do you think we should move on?
No, that's another one. Ollie Behrman. He started from P20 in Monaco and finished P12. I think for a rookie, that's very good.
Do you know what? That is something that I completely missed. I think I was just so bored by watching everything else that I missed that. But yes, Ollie Behrman, started at the back of the grid? Yeah, look at it here, P12. How did he manage that? How did he do that?
And there was, and the fact that you could say, oh, there was a lot of crashes, but no, there was only it was Alonso and Gasly. That was it. From the 20 cars, 18 finished, and Behrman was in 12. So I think that's good.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it here. Like so he finished ahead of Colapinto, Bortoleto, Stroll, which is, look, that's no debate. Like, I mean, that's not hard. Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, Antonelli, and then of course I know Alonso and Gasly had their DNF. But like, how did he manage that? Did he pull like one of those, like, on the F1 games where like your car starts ghosting? Did he just do that? Go through all these drivers? I mean, what did Haas do this weekend? With Behrman, did they pull out some pit strategy that just got him ahead? I mean, I know Ocon, he started, P7, and then he finished P7. So, obviously, that's great for Ocon. I know he was delighted, oh my God, Ocon in Q3. But how did Behrman do that? I'm genuinely confused.
Actually, Ocon started P8, so he actually won the position.
That's right. He did start P8. Sorry, I'm looking at it here. Yeah, P8, he did start there. How did Haas manage to gain positions? I know, obviously, look, Behrman, he was outside the points, but that was for Monaco. What a comeback drive. How did he do that? I'm actually genuinely confused.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I noticed, but he got there.
Wow.
It proves that he knows what he's doing for a rookie.
Yeah.
He knows his way around track.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. Hats off to Oliver Behrman. I've already put in my driver of the day and dick of the day and loser of the day, but do you know what? I think I'm gonna have to swap my driver of the day around now, because Ollie Behrman just pulling out the Houdini there and just deciding to drive through a load of cars and go P12. Holy shit! Well done, Ollie Behrman. That was really impressive for Monaco, because it's Monaco. Yeah. Well, look, Isidro, I think that kind of covers the entirety of the Monaco race. There wasn't really anything else that really stood out. It was just Monaco. It was basically Monaco again. But look, the top 10 results pretty much, as I said it before we went into the race, finished up exactly the same way they did, bar Alonso DNF, and so everyone kind of moved up one. But basically, the top 10 finish was Lando Norris in P1. Finally, he came back and he got that luck and he got P1. P2 was Charles Leclerc. P3 was Piastri. Verstappen came in P4. Hamilton in P5. He finished 51 seconds behind Lando Norris. That was a big difference there. But then also Isaac Hadjar in P6, Ocon in P7, Lawson in P8, and then Albon and Sainz in P9 and 10. I know Damien is, if he's listened to this, he's probably going, woohoo, Williams, double points again. But look, that moves us on to our driver of the day, our dick of the day, our loser of the day. Isidro, who was your DDL?
I know we there was a few. I know Leclerc, he won the official driver of the day, and he has his merit in getting the second. But as we were talking, I think Ollie Behrman driving a Haas starting from P20 and finish P12, for me, that's worth it to be a driver of the day.
Definitely. No, I agree with that. I'm sorry to cut across you. I had Lando Norris. I'm sorry, he's gone from that. Ollie Behrman gets that for me. I totally agree. But Isidro, who was your dick of the day and loser of the day?
Dick of the day, I'll go with Russell for just to let Albon touch the nerve and just react the way he did. I'll take the penalty, and get out of here.
Yeah.
Of course, that he paid the price later on.
Yeah. Yeah. And then who is your loser of the day?
The loser of the day, the Mercedes team itself. They were on the loser side the whole weekend. From the drivers, Antonelli crashing, and both drivers finish outside the top 10. So that's definitely the entire Mercedes team for me are the losers.
Toto Wolff just looks so pissed off this weekend. Every time they kept on cutting Toto Wolff, he just looks so pissed off. I'm so sorry. Just when you brought that up and you say the entire Mercedes team, I could just see Toto Wolff. I can't make the expression right now because I'm just crying laughing at this. But every single time, he was just so pissed off. Oh my God. Oh, just when I think about that, holy shit. Oh, definitely not a good weekend for Mercedes. Who knows? Maybe a bit of pumpernickel and espresso could have cheered him up, but he was definitely not a happy bunny. But look, as I said, I had Lando Norris as my driver of the day, but screw that. I give it to Ollie Behrman because P20 to P12 in Monaco. Hats off to Ollie Behrman. My dick of the day is Liam Lawson. I'm only joking. It wasn't Liam Lawson. I'm gonna give him a break this weekend. No, my dick of the day was the entire Monaco track. That was my dick of the day. Monaco, you were a dick, and thank God we're moving on to Spain. But anyway, my loser of the day were the fans who had to watch the race and the drivers for having to drive around Monaco. So that was my DDL. So that brings us on to our predictions game. Of course, look, the guys did send in their predictions. Yeah, I just kind of even looking at this here, it was, an interesting one. But look, Dave, Owen, and of course, look, we got Damien's predictions last week. But we'll start off with Dave. He predicted for his top three, he had Norris in P1, which did give him a point. There we go. He did get a point for that. He had Piastri in P2 and Leclerc in P3. Oh, that was so close. The right drivers, but just two were the wrong way around. Now, he did have as his flop Tsunoda in the wall for 2 points. However, that was a 0-pointer. And then he had Alonso in the top 10.
Oh,
definitely a rough weekend for Dave. But when it comes to Owen, though, yeah, he had Piastri in P1, he had Norris in P2, and then he had Leclerc in P3. So he had the right drivers, but they were all the wrong way around. Now, for his flop, he did have Verstappen to DNF, which didn't happen. And then he had Gasly inside the top 10. I say he was screaming at his TV when he seen that happen. So unfortunately, Owen, this weekend, 0 points. Isidro, what were your predictions?
Oh, the same story. Piastri P1, Max P2, and Leclerc P3.
It's just so annoying.
3 drivers in the wrong place. And then I had the outside top 10, which couldn't be away from the truth.
Yep.
And then Gasly inside top 10. I was so disappointed when I saw that move. And the DNF.
You know what? I'm so sorry, right? But Holly has picked Gasly. Well, bar Dave picked Gasly inside the top 10. And I said it last weekend on the episode. I was like, oh, I hope you don't get any points for that one. And then, boom.
You thought there was a conspiracy.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. I thought there was a conspiracy going on. I was like, do you guys have like a separate group chat where, you know, you're finding out all these things about Alpine
information?
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you are in a secret group chat, definitely leave that one because you are getting bad info. But anyway, moving on. For my predictions, I definitely didn't have a good weekend either at all. For my predictions, I had Piastri in P1, which was 0. I had Verstappen in P2, which was 0, and then I had Norris in P3. So I got 2 drivers right, but in the wrong order. And then, of course, Verstappen was outside that top 3. So 0 points for all of those. Then I had Antonelli to bin it into the wall. Now, I did put this into the group chat. I said, I really feel that I should get half a point for this, because if you think about it, technically qualified is the same as the race when it comes to Monaco.
Yeah, but no.
I know. Of course, look, we can make exceptions for Monaco, but we can't make exceptions for Aiden. But anyway, moving on. And then lastly, I had, for my surprise, and oh my God, I was absolutely screaming at my TV. Well, I wasn't screaming. I was just very angry when I seen this happen, because Alonso was actually doing very, very well. And when I seen it in qualifying, I was like, yes, I might actually get a couple of points again this weekend. Alonso inside the top 10. So for me in total, I had 0 points. Then finally, for Damien's predictions, he had Piastri in P1, which was 0 points, Norris in P2, which was 0, and Leclerc in P3. So similar to the likes of Owen, he just had them in the wrong order, so that's 0 points. Then moving on as well, for his flop, he had Hamilton outside the top 10, which was 0, and then Gasly inside the top 10, which was 0. So the winner this weekend was definitely Dave with 1 point.
How sad is that?
I know. This is what I mean. Monaco just absolutely screwed us all over. Oh my God, we were so off the mark when it came to our predictions. Holy shit, Isidro, that was so bad. But anyway, look, the guys did send in their predictions for next weekend, which is Spain, our lovely, lovely Spain. And of course, it's more than likely going to be the last year of Catalonia. And I'll leave that till next weekend, and we'll talk about that. But anyway, Dave did send in his predictions. He has Norris in P1, Piastri in P2, and Verstappen in P3. Then his flop is going to be Lawson outside the top 10. I think that's a maybe. That's 100%. Yeah, very, very likely. And then also Russell inside the top 10 for his surprise. That could possibly, very, very likely. Owen as well, for his predictions, he has Norris, Piastri, and Max in P1, P2, and P3. Then he has Ocon outside the top 10. Possibility, that could happen. And then Alonso inside the top 10. Are you sure about that, Owen? I mean, just kind of going off the last couple of races here. But okay. Hopefully he does. I mean, I know it's his home race, but yeah, look, we'll see. Isidro, what are your predictions for next weekend?
So my predictions is Max P1, Piastri P2, and Norris P3.
So Max, Piastri, and Norris P1, P2, and P3. And then what is your flop?
My flop will be Ocon outside top 10.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, again, that'll probably happen.
And then the surprise will be Russell inside top 10. That's a given.
Yeah, do you know what? I kind of feel like that is going to happen. I think I might even play that card too. But I think I'm going to do one even better, right? I know I was kind of looking at this before we actually started recording. I was looking at last year's results compared to what could possibly happen this year and looking at the performance and things like that. And like, do you know what? I'm going to go out here and I'm going to kind of copy you, Isidro. I'm going to say Max P1. I'm just going to go out here on the limb, and I really feel that Max is going to get a P1. Then I think it's going to be a Piastri, because I really feel that he wants a comeback now that the points are so close between him and Norris. I feel like he's going to go for a P2. And then lastly, I think it's going to be Norris in P3. So I am copying you this weekend, Isidro. So sorry. But then for my flop, of course, I am going to go with King Dick outside the top 10. And then I am going to go with Russell inside the top 10. Just let me pop that in there. Russell inside top 10. Okay, so there's my predictions for Spain. Now, Damien did send in his predictions. He is going to go with Piastri, Norris, and Max for P1, P2, and P3. And then he has Lawson outside the top 10. And then, go figure, Russell inside the top 10. So, looking at the table there, it pretty much looks like nothing has changed, bar myself and Dave are both on 8 points. So it looks like at the top we have Damien in 13 points, Owen again with 11, myself and Dave on 8, and then Isidro, you're on 5. I hope next week
of this group.
As I said, I've upgraded to Haas now that I'm on my 8 points, or should I maybe say Ferrari? Because I know we've associated Dave with Ferrari. maybe I'm the second seat Ferrari, you know. But who knows? Maybe next weekend, myself and yourself, Isidro, I think maybe we might get some more points over the guys, but we'll see what happens anyway. But look, folks, that brings us on to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for listening. Isidro, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk about Monaco. I don't know about yourself, but I think we can kind of both agree, thank God Monaco is over. Am I right?
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. Look, it's done. It's wrapped up in a little nice bow until next year because, of course, look, they've renewed it for another 1 billion years and we have to deal with this shit again next year. But anyway, we're going to be moving on to Spain next weekend. That's right, folks. We are heading to Catalonia for the Spanish Grand Prix. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, it looks like this could be the last year of the Catalonian Grand Prix because they are moving to the Madrid Ring, as they like to call it now, for 2026. But if you did enjoy today's episode, folks, definitely make sure to hit that like button. Obviously, share with your friends if they do like F1 as well. Tell us your thoughts below in the comment section here on Spotify, YouTube, and all the places where you get your podcasts. And of course, look, thank you so much for listening. And of course, definitely let us know your thoughts about Monaco. Again, Albon, I think he was just being a bit of a butt with his huge butt. But anyway, see you all for Catalonia. Adios.